Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Life-Changing True Stories. Today, I bring you a powerful and deeply loving story. Nathan Cross stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the sunset paint Seattle's skyline in shades of amber and crimson. At 42, he had built an empire that most people only dreamed about. His real estate company owned half the commercial properties in downtown Seattle. His personal wealth could buy almost anything money could purchase. Yet, as he stood there alone, surrounded by expensive furniture and meaningless awards, he felt nothing. No joy, no excitement, just the cold satisfaction of another successful day measured in numbers and contracts. He had trained himself to see the world through a lens of pure logic. Emotions were weaknesses that clouded judgment. Relationships were transactions with costs and benefits. Even his employees were simply resources to be managed efficiently. This philosophy had served him well in business, transforming a small investment firm into a real estate powerhouse within 15 years. But it had also left him isolated, surrounded by people who respected his money rather than the man behind it. His personal assistant, Olivia Carter, had been working for him for 8 months. She arrived every morning at 7 sharp, her dark hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her simple but professional clothes always clean and pressed. She organized his chaotic schedule with remarkable precision, never forgot a single appointment, and handled difficult clients with a patience that impressed even Nathan. Her work was flawless, her demeanor always calm and respectful. She was exactly the kind of employee he valued most. Efficient and invisible, Nathan rarely looked at her beyond what was necessary for giving instructions. He did not know where she lived, what she did on weekends, or what dreams kept her awake at night. These details seemed irrelevant to their professional relationship. She was a component in the machinery of his business, important but replaceable if she ever stopped functioning properly. It never occurred to him to wonder if there might be more to her story than the polished surface she presented each day. The office occupied the entire 20th floor of the Cross Tower, a building Nathan had developed 5 years earlier. Glass walls offered views of Elliott Bay and the distant Olympic Mountains, though Nathan rarely paused to appreciate them. His desk was made of imported walnut, always perfectly organized, with not a single paper out of place. Diplomas from prestigious universities lined the walls alongside photographs of Nathan shaking hands with senators, mayors, and business leaders. Everything in that space communicated success, power, and absolute control. Olivia worked at a smaller desk just outside his private office, serving as the gatekeeper between Nathan and the chaos of the outside world. She filtered phone calls, managed unexpected visitors, and kept problems from reaching him unless absolutely necessary. She was so good at her job that Nathan sometimes forgot she was even there, which was exactly how he preferred it. Their interactions followed a predictable script of brief questions and efficient answers, never straying into personal territory. That Tuesday morning began like any other in Nathan's carefully controlled routine. He arrived at exactly 7:15, carrying his usual black coffee from the expensive cafe downstairs, already reviewing emails on his phone as he walked. Olivia was at her desk with her customary professional smile, a detailed schedule for the day printed and waiting on his desk. Her greeting was polite and brief, exactly as it should be. Nathan nodded without really looking at her, took the schedule, closed his office door as he always did. The morning passed in a blur of conference calls and contract negotiations. Nathan reviewed financial projections for a new development project, argued with contractors about construction delays, and rejected 3 different design proposals for a shopping complex. By 1 in the afternoon, he needed a break from the endless stream of decisions. He stepped out to the small kitchenette on their floor to refill his coffee, his mind still churning through the numbers from the last presentation. That was when he noticed something unusual on Olivia's desk. A clear plastic container sat next to her computer, completely empty. There were no crumbs, no sauce stains, no evidence that food had ever been inside. The container was spotless, as if someone had scrubbed it clean with obsessive care. Nathan frowned, puzzled by this odd detail that seemed out of place in their normally perfect office environment. He glanced at the clock on the wall. It was past 1, well into the lunch hour. Olivia was not at her desk. It's probably in the restroom. Something about that empty container created an uncomfortable feeling in Nathan's chest. a sensation he could not immediately identify. Why would someone keep an empty container sitting out like that? Why not simply throw it away? Or put it in a bag? The questions nagged at him with surprising persistence. Curiosity, an emotion he normally suppressed in business contexts, began to stir in some forgotten corner of his mind. Without fully understanding why, Nathan found himself moving closer to Olivia's desk. Drawn by a mystery that demanded to be solved, he looked down the hallway to make sure Olivia was not returning, then picked up the container. It was cheap plastic, the kind sold at discount stores for a few dollars. Nothing special about it at all. But as he examined it more closely, Nathan noticed something tucked into the bottom corner. A small piece of paper, folded carefully and pressed flat against the plastic. His heart began beating faster, though he could not explain why. He glanced toward the hallway again, confirming he was still alone. Then carefully removed the paper and unfolded it. The handwriting was feminine and neat, written in blue ink on lined notebook paper. Nathan read the words once, then again, then a third time, unable to fully process what they revealed. Someday, I will have a better life, but for now, I am grateful for what little I have. Because of my mother's medical bills, I cannot afford to spend anything on myself. God will reward me when the time is right. The note was signed simply with the letter O. Nathan's hands trembled as he held the paper. He read it a fourth time, searching for some detail he might have misunderstood, but there was no mistake possible. These words, written with such humble dignity, revealed a reality he had never considered. Olivia was not bringing lunch because she could not afford to buy it. That empty container was not carelessness or forgetfulness. It was the silent evidence of daily sacrifice. A reminder to herself of better days ahead. She arrived every morning looking professional and put together. But behind that carefully maintained appearance, she was fighting a brutal financial battle. How many days had she worked on an empty stomach? How many times had she smiled while taking his orders, when she probably wanted nothing more than a hot meal? The questions hit Nathan one after another, cracking open the armor of indifference it built over decades of focusing only on business success. For the first time in many years, Nathan Cross felt small, despite his massive fortune. The note was still in his hand when he heard footsteps approaching down the hallway. Quickly, he refolded the paper and slipped it into his jacket pocket, placing the container exactly where he had found it. Olivia appeared moments later, carrying a folder of documents that needed his immediate review. She apologized for the slight delay, explaining that the printer on the third floor had been occupied. Nathan looked at her as if seeing her for the first time in 8 months. Her brown eyes held a spark of determination he had never noticed before. Her hands, thin but strong, gripped that folder with the same dedication she probably used to care for her sick mother. When she spoke, her voice was steady and professional, giving no hint of the suffering she carried silently. "No problem, Olivia. Just leave them on my desk," Nathan replied, his voice sounding strangely rough even to his own ears. She nodded and stepped into his office briefly to deliver the documents. When she returned to her desk and resumed working at her computer, Nathan remained standing near his office door. Watching her from an angle she could not see, he observed as she took the empty container and carefully placed it in her bag, handling it as if it were something precious that could not be left behind. That simple gesture confirmed everything the note had revealed. This was not carelessness. This was dignity in the midst of scarcity. This was maintaining appearances when inside she was probably collapsing from hunger and worry. Nathan felt something new and terrifying growing in his chest. Guilt, shame, a mixture of emotions he did not know how to name or manage. He returned to his office and closed the door. But this time he could not concentrate on the documents in front of him. The note in his pocket weighed on him like lead, reminding him that in his obsessive pursuit of success, he had forgotten something essential. He had forgotten that the people around him also had stories, dreams, and pains that money could not always see or solve. The rest of that afternoon passed in a strange fog for Nathan. He signed documents without reading them completely, responded to emails with automatic replies, and canceled an important meeting claiming sudden illness. It was not entirely a lie. Something inside him had been shaken violently, like an internal earthquake rattling the foundations of his existence. The note stayed in his pocket, burning his consciousness every time his fingers brushed against the fabric of his jacket. Olivia's words echoed in his mind like a persistent voice that would not leave him in peace. Because of my mother's medical bills, I cannot afford to spend anything on myself. How serious was her mother's illness? How much were the medications costing that Olivia was buying by sacrificing her own food? The questions multiplied without answers, creating a whirlwind of thoughts that pulled him further and further from his comfortable zone of calculated control. At 6 p.m, Olivia knocked softly on his office door, before entering to let him know she had finished filing the contracts for the week and was leaving for the day unless he needed anything else. Nathan looked up at her with new intensity, trying to read in her face some sign of the suffering she was hiding. But she maintained a serene expression, almost cheerful, as if nothing weighed on her slim shoulders. Something in Nathan broke in that moment, a wall he had built brick by brick over years of choosing money over human connection. He could not let her walk out that door without acknowledging what he had discovered, without somehow beginning to make things right. "Olivia, wait a moment," he said, surprising even himself with those words. She paused by the door, waiting patiently with that professional demeanor that now seemed heartbreaking rather than merely efficient. Nathan searched his mind for something appropriate to say, something that would not reveal he had invaded her privacy by reading that note. The words came slowly, carefully chosen to sound casual rather than intrusive. "How is your mother doing? I think you mentioned some time ago that she was having health problems." It was a partial lie, because he did not remember her ever telling him anything like that. In fact, he had never asked her a single personal question in 8 months. But it was the only way he could think of to open this conversation without admitting what he had done. Olivia's face lit up with a mixture of surprise and genuine gratitude that made Nathan's heart ache. "Thank you for asking, Mr. Cross. My mother is fighting. She has advanced diabetes and her kidneys started failing a few months ago. It is complicated, but God gives us strength each day." Her voice cracked slightly at the end, a barely perceptible fracture in her armor of strength. Nathan felt that crack like a stab directly to his heart. Now he understood the note with painful clarity. Medications for diabetes and dialysis were terribly expensive. Even for someone with stable employment, for someone earning an assistant's salary, it must be a crushing burden. Nathan stood up from his desk, moved by an impulse he could not fully explain. "Olivia, if you need anything, if there is any way I can help." The words stuck in his throat. How could he offer help without sounding condescending? How could he erase 8 months of indifference with one sudden gesture of concern? But before he could finish the thought, Olivia smiled at him with such genuine warmth that it took his breath away. "You are very kind, Mr. Cross, but we will manage. We always do. Besides, this job is an enormous blessing. It allows me to pay for some treatments, and that is already more than many people have." Her words, spoken with absolute sincerity, were worse than any reproach. She was thanking him for giving her a job while she silently went hungry. She was smiling at him while carrying a weight that would have destroyed weaker people. Nathan realized in that moment that everything he thought he knew about success and happiness was wrong. Olivia Carter, with her empty lunchbox and her impossible burdens, had more grace and strength than he had ever possessed, despite all his millions. And somehow, without planning it or even wanting it, she had cracked open something in his carefully guarded heart he was not sure he could close again. Nathan could not sleep that night. His waterfront mansion, with its 6 empty bedrooms and expensive minimalist furniture, felt colder and more hollow than ever before. He walked barefoot across the marble floors, listening to the sound of waves crashing against the shore below his property. The note from Olivia's lunchbox was still in his jacket pocket upstairs, but the words were burned into his memory with photographic precision. He tried to remember the last time he had truly seen another person, not as a piece in his business machinery, but as a complete human being with fears, dreams, and invisible battles. The memory would not come. His entire adult life had been an obsessive climb toward material success, trampling without realizing it on everything that made life worth living. Friendships abandoned for business meetings. Romantic relationships ended because he had no time for emotional complications. Family members who stopped calling after years of receiving only brief and cold messages. At 3 a.m, Nathan sat on his living room couch with an untouched glass of whiskey in his hand. For the first time in decades, he confronted a terrifying truth. He was wealthy in money, but completely poor in real human connections. He had built an empire of concrete and contracts, but lived in an emotional desert where nobody would genuinely miss him if he disappeared tomorrow. His employees respected him out of fear or convenience. His business partners tolerated him for mutual benefit. His acquaintances flattered him, hoping for favors. But who would actually care about him as a person? Who would write a note thanking God for his existence? Nobody. The answer hit him with brutal clarity. While Olivia struggled with material poverty, she had a mother to love and protect. He had absolutely nobody. His fortune could not buy what she possessed naturally: purpose, unconditional love, reasons to get up each morning beyond the next $1 million. The next morning, Nathan arrived at the office with a new determination burning in his chest. He found Olivia already at her desk, preparing his daily schedule with her usual efficiency. But this time Nathan did not simply take the papers and close his door. He stopped, really looked at her, and spoke words that surprised them both. "Olivia, I want you to take this afternoon off. Go to the hospital with your mother. Make sure she receives the best care available. I will cover any medical expenses you need." His voice was firm, using the authoritative tone he employed in important negotiations. He expected her to accept without questions, as she did with all his work instructions. But this time was different. Olivia looked at him with eyes shining with contained tears, struggling between desperate need and the pride that kept her standing. "Mr. Cross, I cannot accept that. It is too generous, and it would not be right." Her voice trembled now without disguise, revealing the internal battle she was fighting. Nathan walked around his desk and approached her, reducing the professional distance he had always maintained religiously. "Olivia, look at me. This is not charity. It is justice. You have worked 8 months flawlessly. You have never failed a single day. You deserve much more than I have given you. Starting with this, your health and your mother's health are the priority." He extended his hand with a corporate credit card he pulled from his wallet, one he used for company expenses. "Take this. Tomorrow you go with your mother to the best private hospital in Seattle and tell them all expenses go to my business account. This is not up for discussion." Olivia took the card with trembling hands, and a tear finally escaped down her cheek. "Thank you," she whispered with a broken voice. "Thank you for seeing me." Those last words hit Nathan with devastating force. Because in 8 months of perfect work, she had never asked to be seen as a person. She only thanked him now that someone finally noticed her existence beyond completed tasks. That night, Nathan could not stop thinking about what he had set in motion. He had given Olivia the means to help her mother, but he realized it was not enough. He needed to understand her world, to truly know the woman who had somehow begun to matter to him in ways he could not yet name. The hospital vigil the following weeks brought changes too. He started leaving work earlier, something that shocked his business partner, James Rivera, who had known him for 15 years. Nathan began asking Olivia questions that had nothing to do with work schedules or business contracts. Simple questions about her day, her mother's condition, her dreams for the future. At first, Olivia answered with hesitant politeness, unsure why her boss was suddenly interested in her personal life. But gradually, as Nathan's questions became more frequent and his concern more genuine, she began to open up. She showed him photos of her mother, Rose, on her phone, smiling with pride as she talked about small improvements in her health, thanks to the new treatments. She told him about her dream of someday studying business administration, something she had to postpone to work and care for Rose. Each revelation made Nathan admire her more, made him feel something warm and frightening growing inside him that he did not dare name yet. One Friday evening, Nathan made a decision that would have been unthinkable a month earlier. "Olivia, I would like to meet your mother properly. Would it be all right if I visit this weekend?" The request came out more nervously than he intended. Olivia's face showed surprise, then something softer, almost hopeful. "She would love that, Mr. Kraus. She has been wanting to thank you in person." Saturday afternoon found Nathan driving to a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of Seattle, a world away from his waterfront mansion and downtown penthouse office. Rose Carter's house was small, but immaculately maintained, with flower boxes in the windows and a tiny front garden showing signs of careful attention despite limited resources. When Rose opened the door, leaning slightly on a cane. Nathan was struck by the warmth in her smile. "So you are Olivia's boss? God bless you for your kindness to us, Mr. Cross." Her voice was soft but firm, filled with unshakable faith. The house had simple furniture and walls decorated with family photos and religious images, but there was more warmth in those modest rooms than in all of Nathan's expensive properties combined. Rose insisted on making tea and serving homemade cookies, moving slowly but with beautiful dignity. Nathan sat on a worn but clean sofa, drinking tea from a chipped cup, and felt more at home than he had in years. He watched Olivia help her mother with infinite tenderness, anticipating every need without making Rose feel helpless. In that moment, sitting in a humble living room with two remarkable women, Nathan understood something his money had never taught him. True luxury was having someone to love and who loved you back. Without conditions or contracts, the crisis that changed everything November arrived. With early winter rains and a fragile happiness that Nathan had begun to believe might last, he had arranged for Rose to receive the best medical care available, hired a part-time nurse to help with her daily needs, and even started having dinner at their house once a week. Those evenings became the highlight of Nathan's week, filled with laughter, stories, and a sense of belonging he had never experienced. But happiness proved fragile when tested against the cruelty of illness. One cold Wednesday morning, Nathan's phone rang at 5 a.m. Olivia's voice was frantic with terror. "Nathan, something is wrong with my mother. She is not responding properly. Her breathing is strange. Please, I do not know what to do." Nathan was out of bed instantly, pulling on clothes while staying on the phone. "Call an ambulance." "I am coming right now." "Stay calm, Olivia. We will get through this." He drove through empty pre-dawn streets faster than he had ever driven, his heart pounding with fear. When he arrived at their house, paramedics were already loading Rose into an ambulance. Olivia was crying, trying to climb in with her mother. "I am coming with you," Nathan said firmly, taking Olivia's hand. At the hospital, doctors worked for hours while Nathan and Olivia waited outside, holding each other. Nathan found himself praying to a God he had ignored for decades, making desperate bargains if only Rose would survive. When a cardiologist finally emerged, his expression revealed bad news before he spoke. She had a serious complication, a minor heart attack caused by the stress her kidney condition places on her heart. "We stabilized her, but her body is very weak. The next few days will be critical." Olivia collapsed in Nathan's arms, sobbing with pain he felt as his own. "She cannot leave yet," she repeated through tears. "I am not ready to say goodbye. Please God, do not take her yet." The next 3 days were brutal. Nathan and Olivia stayed at the hospital constantly, taking turns sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, holding Rose's hands, reading her favorite Bible passages. Rose had moments of clarity where she smiled weakly, followed by episodes where she could barely keep her eyes open. Nathan found himself silently begging the universe for more time. More moments with this woman who had shown him what true grace looked like. On the 4th day, Rose woke with unusual clarity, as if her spirit had gathered all remaining strength for one final important conversation. "Olivia, my love, come closer," she requested with a weak but firm voice. Olivia knelt beside her bed, tears running silently down her cheeks. "Mom, do not talk like that. You are going to get better," the doctor said. But Rose gently shook her head, interrupting with the wisdom of someone who feels the end approaching. "My beautiful girl, I have lived a blessed life despite difficulties. I watched you grow into a wonderful, strong, and kind woman. No mother could be prouder in all of America. Now I need you to listen carefully." Her voice trembled with effort, but her words came with unshakable determination. Rose extended her other hand toward Nathan, who had been standing near the window trying to give them privacy. "Mr. Cross, come here, please. This is for you too." Nathan approached slowly, feeling he was about to receive something sacred. Rose took his hand with surprising strength for someone so weak, joining his fingers with Olivia's in a deliberate and symbolic gesture. "You came into our lives like a miracle disguised as a boss. I saw how you looked at my daughter from the first time I met you. I recognize love when I see it, even if you two have not admitted it out loud yet." Olivia choked on a sob, her face burning with emotion. Nathan felt his throat closing, unable to deny something this wise woman had seen with absolute clarity. "Mr. Cross." Rose continued with an increasingly weak voice. Money can buy many wonderful things. Medicines, treatments, beautiful houses by the water. But my Olivia needs something money can never buy. True love, sincere companionship, someone who sees her for who she is and not for what she has or does not have. Tears now ran freely down Nathan's face, tears he had not shed since childhood. Rose squeezed their joined hands with the last strength she had left. Promise me something, Mr. Cross. Promise you will take care of my girl, not just with your money, but with your heart. Promise you will never leave her alone, that you will love her in good days and bad days, that you will be for her what money can never be, a true life companion. Her voice broke on the last word and machines began emitting alarm sounds. Nurses and doctors rushed in, gently pushing Nathan and Olivia aside as they worked frantically. But before they were completely separated, Nathan squeezed Rose's hand and spoke the most important words of his life. I promise. I will love her with everything I am and everything I have. She will never be alone. You have my word, Mrs. Carter. You have my word. Rose smiled then, a smile of absolute peace that illuminated her tired face. Her eyes closed gently as she whispered something only Olivia heard. Now I can go in peace. And surrounded by love, with her daughter's hand in hers, and a promise given in complete sincerity. Rose Carter took her last breath. The heart that had beaten for 58 years, carrying unconditional love to everyone who knew her, finally rested, leaving behind a legacy that would forever change the destiny of two souls who were just beginning to find each other amid pain and hope. Rose Carter's funeral was a simple but beautiful ceremony, filled with neighbors from her modest community who came to say goodbye to a woman who always had a kind word and a helping hand. Nathan organized everything according to traditions he knew Rose would have wanted. A service at the small neighborhood church where she prayed every Sunday, white flowers filling the altar. Musicians playing her favorite songs at the ceremony's end. Olivia moved through those days like a sleepwalker, held up literally by Nathan's arms, which never left her side for a moment. He canceled his entire month of commitments, something his business partners received with disbelief and frustration. But for the first time in his life, Nathan understood there were things infinitely more important than business deals. There were promises to keep, broken hearts to heal, real people who needed presence rather than money during the most difficult nights. When Olivia woke crying and calling for her mother, Nathan held her in his arms until the sobbing calmed and she fell back asleep exhausted. He discovered that comforting another person's grief was far more important than any contract he had ever signed. 1 week after the funeral, Olivia tried to return to the office as if nothing had happened. She arrived at 7 in the morning wearing her work clothes impeccably, but her swollen eyes and forced smile betrayed her. Nathan found her organizing files with trembling hands, desperately trying to cling to routine so she would not have to think. Olivia, what are you doing here? He asked gently, approaching slowly, as if afraid she might break at the slightest harsh contact. Working, Mr. Cross. I have been absent too long. There must be so much to catch up on. Her voice was mechanical, hollow, as if she were reading from a script. Nathan took the files from her hands and set them aside, then gently turned her to face him. You do not need to be strong right now. You do not need to pretend everything is fine. Your mother just died, Olivia. You are allowed to fall apart. His words, spoken with such tenderness, broke through the wall she had built around her grief. Olivia collapsed against his chest, sobbing with the full force of pain she had been holding back. Nathan held her tightly, one hand stroking her hair, whispering words of comfort he did not know he possessed. I am here. You are not alone. I promised your mother, and I never break my promises. They stood like that for a long time, in the middle of the office that had once been a cold professional space, but now witnessed the most human moment either of them had ever experienced. Rebuilding a life together, the weeks that followed were difficult but transformative. Nathan moved Olivia into his mansion, not as an employee, but as someone he cared for deeply. He converted one of the empty bedrooms into a sanctuary for her, filled with photos of Rose, her favorite books, and comfortable furniture where she could grieve privately when needed. But most nights, Olivia ended up in Nathan's room, needing the comfort of another human presence to keep the nightmares away. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Nathan told her about his lonely childhood, or raised by nannies while his parents chased business opportunities around the world. Olivia shared memories of her father, a fisherman who died when she was 12, leaving Rose to raise her alone with limited resources, but unlimited love. They discovered they were both orphans in different ways, both searching for connection in a world that seemed designed to keep people apart. Nathan's business partner James Rivera noticed the dramatic changes in his friend and called him one evening to express concern. "Nathan, what is happening to you? You have canceled more meetings in the past month than in the last 10 years combined. The board is worried. Your investors are asking questions." Nathan looked at Olivia, who was curled up on his couch reading one of her mother's favorite books, and felt a clarity he had never experienced before. "James, I spent 20 years building an empire and forgetting to build a life. I am not canceling meetings because I am having a crisis. I am finally figuring out what actually matters. If the board cannot understand that, maybe I am working with the wrong people." The silence on the other end of the line was profound. Finally, James spoke quietly. "You are in love with her, are you not? Your assistant?" It was not really a question. Nathan smiled, realizing the truth he had been dancing around for weeks. "Yes, I am completely and desperately in love with her. And before you say anything about complications or professional boundaries, I do not care. She is the best thing that has ever happened to me." James laughed then, a warm sound Nathan had not heard from his usually serious partner in years. "It is about time, my friend. I was starting to think you did not have a heart. Bring her to dinner next week. My wife will want to meet the woman who performed this miracle." The promise fulfilled 3 months after Rose's death. On a February evening, when rain pattered softly against the windows, Nathan and Olivia sat together watching the city lights reflect off the water. Olivia had slowly returned to life, the sharp edges of grief softening into a bittersweet acceptance. She had enrolled in evening business classes, pursuing the dream her mother always encouraged. She smiled more often now, genuine smiles that reached her eyes. Nathan had changed too. His office no longer felt like a cold temple to success, but like a place where meaningful work happened. He started a foundation in Rose's name, providing medical assistance to families struggling with chronic illness. He spent more time with actual people and less time with spreadsheets. His mansion, once an empty showcase, now felt like a home filled with laughter, cooking smells, and the comfortable silence of two people who truly knew each other. "I have been thinking," Nathan said quietly, taking Olivia's hand in his. "Your mother made me promise to take care of you, to love you in good days and bad. I want to keep that promise for the rest of my life." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, opening it to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. "Olivia Carter, you walked into my office 8 months ago as an employee, but you became so much more. You taught me what courage looks like. You showed me that strength is not about having money or power, but about getting up every day and doing what needs to be done, even when it is impossibly hard. You made me feel things I thought I was incapable of feeling." His voice cracked with emotion. "I do not deserve you, but I promise to spend every day trying to be worthy of the gift your mother gave me when she asked me to love you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down Olivia's face, but she was smiling, truly smiling, with a joy that lit up her entire being. "Yes, 1,000 times yes. My mother knew before we did. She saw your heart when you could not see it yourself." Nathan slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, with all the love he had kept locked away for 42 years. When they finally pulled apart, Olivia whispered against his lips, "She would be so happy right now. She always said God would reward me when the time was right." "I think you were the reward she was talking about." "No," Nathan corrected gently, brushing away her tears. "You were my reward. You and your mother saved me from a life that looked successful, but was completely empty. I was the richest poor man in Seattle until an empty lunchbox showed me what I was missing." A new beginning. The wedding took place in the small church where they had said goodbye to Rose. Surrounded by friends from both their worlds, neighbors from Olivia's old community sat beside wealthy business associates, creating an unusual but beautiful mix of people who would never normally occupy the same space. Nathan's elderly housekeeper Teresa, who had watched her employer transform over the past months, cried tears of joy throughout the ceremony, as Nathan and Olivia exchanged vows, promising to love each other in sickness and health, in wealth and poverty. Both felt Rose's presence like a warm blessing surrounding them. The reception was held at Nathan's mansion, which Olivia had helped transform from a cold showplace into a warm home. Photos of Rose occupied a place of honor, reminding everyone that love sometimes arrives through unexpected messengers. James, Vera gave a toast that made everyone laugh and cry. I have known Nathan Cross for 15 years, and I can honestly say I did not really know him until 6 months ago. He was my business partner, but he was not my friend because he did not let anyone close enough for friendship. Then Olivia walked into his life, or more accurately, he finally opened his eyes and saw her. She did not change him. She revealed who he actually was underneath all that armor. To Olivia, the woman who performed the miracle of making Nathan Cross human again. That night, as they danced together under strings of lights on the terrace overlooking the water, Olivia whispered in Nathan's ear, "Do you remember what my note in the lunchbox said? That someday I would have a better life?" Nathan nodded, remembering every word of that note that had changed everything. This is that someday. This is the better life my mother and I prayed for, not because of the money or the big house, but because I found someone who sees me, really sees me, and loves what he sees. Nathan held her closer, overwhelmed by gratitude for an empty plastic container and a small note that opened his eyes to what truly mattered. "I see you, Olivia Cross. I see your strength, your kindness, your incredible capacity to love even when life was incredibly hard. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel invisible again." Years later, when people asked Nathan Cross what made him successful, he would smile and tell them about an empty lunchbox, a dying woman's wisdom, and a young woman whose quiet courage taught him that the greatest wealth has nothing to do with money. He would tell them that real success is measured in love given and received, in promises kept, in being truly seen by another human soul. And every year on the anniversary of Rose Carter's death, Nathan and Olivia would visit her grave with flowers and stories of their life together, thanking her for the final gift she gave them both. The gift of seeing that love, not money, is the currency that actually matters. The gift of understanding that sometimes the most valuable things come in the simplest packages. Like a note folded inside an empty lunchbox, waiting to change everything. This story reminds us that true wealth cannot be measured in bank accounts or material possessions. The richest people are those who love deeply and are deeply loved in return. Sometimes it takes loss to teach us what matters, and sometimes the greatest fortunes are discovered in the most unexpected places. Thank you for taking Thed time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more meaningful stories.